If I were to ask you, what is the most important thing to you right now? What would the answer be? Go ahead and think about it. I know what you think you should probably say. You think you should say, my kids, my husband, my job. You should say something. But I want you to think, what's your first thing when I say to you, what's the most important thing right now? Is it your health? I bet it's not the first thing that pops to your head. Mm-mm. Is it having a clean house? That's probably definitely not the first thing that comes to mind. But maybe it should be. Maybe it should be. So I've talked about before how I have quite a few friends right now who are battling cancer.
Yeah.
And I mentioned a few weeks ago on the podcast that if you get that diagnosis, your health becomes your number one priority.
Yeah.
You don't want to wait for that to make it your number one priority. And it doesn't necessarily have to be number one. But what does need to be number one is your happiness and how you feel. And if you feel sluggish, if you feel fat, if you feel tired, if you feel ugly, if you feel any of these things,
and overwhelmed about it all,
yeah, you're not going to be good at anything. And it doesn't matter if your kids are your number one priority, or your husband is your number one priority, or your job is your number one priority. If you feel like crap, you're not going to do honor and justice to that priority. So you need to reevaluate what you really, really want.
Oftentimes what we say we really want are things like what you just said, Heather. It's, our family or our jobs or our God or whatever we think society says we should say. And we say that, perhaps we really do mean it, but are we acting on those priorities? And if we are acting on those, are we really happy doing it? So here we go into a good conversation about what we're willing to do to meet those priorities and what that means that we should stop doing if we're not meeting those priorities. So welcome to the Home Bod Podcast, where we make our home, our head, and our health happy. And a lot of times I talk with people who say, you know what? I'm doing all of the things on my list. I'm checking off all of the boxes, and I'm still unfulfilled. I am still not happy about how my house is and how my, I say that my kids are my priority, but I scream at my kids all the time. I don't have time with them to do the things that I want to do. And you know what? There's never any time of the day to make a change, to make a difference. And so we really have to assess and analyze, okay, well then what are we doing?
Yeah.
If you say, I don't have 20 minutes to spend reading books with my kids, but if you check on your phone and your phone says you have 5 hours of screen time today.
Busted.
Busted. Maybe we need to reassess. That's telling me that your priority is really your phone, not your kids.
Yeah.
It's not because you don't feel it. It's because you're not acting on it. And that's, again, we've been talking about kind of some hard conversations this month.
Well, and I think that we talked about this, way back on the New Year's resolutions, because some people like to pick a word.
Yeah.
For the year. Yeah. And then that's their, and I think if you choose to do that, what's cool about that is you look through that lens at everything. And if you're, like, my word this year is serve. And which, by the way, I've never done a word before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's my first time.
Kind of fun.
It's my first go around with having a word of the year. But it kind of came to me in a meditation, and I was like, well, I guess I'm supposed to have this word. But anyway, so you look through that lens and you think, okay, if I am looking as a mom through the lens of serving, am I serving my kids by screaming at them? No.
Every day.
Every day from the minute they wake up to the minute they go to bed. No, I'm not. So I think it helps you if that works for you. That's a great way to prioritize things. But even if you don't have a word, if you think my priority is family, my family is my number one thing, how are you choosing that every time? When you wake up in the morning and you look at your daily schedule, have you chosen family as a priority, Or do you just really wish you could prioritize it, but really,
Ooh, that's a good one.
really what's being prioritized is your show on Netflix?
Yeah. Yeah. And we're not talking about this to elicit any kind of feelings of failure or
Right.
drudgery or
Right.
anything like that. One of my favorite guys to follow is Gary Vee. And he was asked once, hey, what do you consider your biggest failure? And he said, well, I fail big every single day because I have a chance to invest billions of dollars into different companies. But when I say yes to one thing, I have to say no to another. And what if I say no to the thing, the next big thing? You know, I could have invested in Uber
scary.
and I didn't, and I lost $60 billion because of it. I mean, this is coming from Gary Vee. You know, those are big mistakes. Big mistakes. So let's bring it back to us. And how is that relevant for us? In order to be successful, and in order to really prove that our priorities are our priorities, instead of looking at it as a failure, we're going to look at it as, what am I going to say yes to? And what am I willing to say no to? And this doesn't mean that you are giving up on yourself. So many times I ask people to get rid of things that aren't fitting into their season of life. Actually, I'll give you a personal example. So I love music. I love singing. And I can't read music all that well. And I sing by ear. I listen to something and I can duplicate it. But I really wanted to learn how to read music, and I love the guitar. I love trumpet actually, but I knew that that was unrealistic. So I decided, okay, you know what? I want to learn how to play a guitar. So I inherited this guitar from my grandma, and I kept it with me for, I don't know, 7, 10 years. And every time I looked at that guitar, I'm like, oh, I haven't touched that guitar. I haven't done anything with it. Like, I really wanted to make that a priority because it was a me thing, and I make me a priority.
And then you beat yourself up.
And then I
over
beat
it.
myself up for
Mhm.
it. And in the meantime, I was having kids, and I was doing diapers, and I wasn't sleeping, and I was starting school, and I was doing all of these other things with my kids. And I realized one day, I am not in a time of life when I can prioritize this aspect
Yeah.
of myself. So why am I holding on to something and grasping so hard at something that's bringing me guilt instead of allowing me
Right.
to focus on the priority of the time? So I decided, you know what? Right now is not the time that I need to be focusing on learning how to play the guitar. That might come at another time. Am I giving up on that dream? No, I'm just saying it's
Just
not
right now.
right now. So I am willing to let go of that guitar in order to be a better mom, in order to read more books, in order to play games with my kids, in order to go to the gym. I'm willing to get rid of that in order to focus my time and energy on the things that I really want to be doing
how much
right
lighter?
now.
How much lighter do you feel when you finally take that burden off of your shoulder?
Yeah.
And allow yourself to not have to worry about it, because you know it was always in the back of your mind.
Oh yeah.
Every time you looked at the case, or every time you probably even heard guitar music or saw someone playing the guitar, you're probably like, ah,
right.
One day. And it just feels like a burden. And as soon as you give yourself permission to take that off of your shoulders,
yeah,
I bet you felt so much better.
So I got rid of my guitar more than 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to know how many times I've regretted not taking guitar lessons?
0.
A big fat 0.
Yep.
You want to know how many times I have felt guilty?
Mm-hmm.
A big fat 0.
Mm-hmm.
I set myself up for success, and I was willing to let go of something in order to gain what I really wanted in my priorities. I was willing to shift. So a lot of times we can take that and run with it and say, okay, you know what? Instead of having 5 different crafts that I do in my craft room,
Mm-hmm.
instead of doing knitting and crocheting and scrapbooking and card making and like all those things,
That's a lot
we're
of
going to say,
things.
you know what? I'm going to prioritize, and I'm going to say I'm going to do knitting and card making. That's it. Done. End of story. I'm not giving up on all of those other things. It's just not right for right now.
I love that.
So I'm willing to give this up for something greater.
I love that. You know, you really have to make those choices every day. I actually have posted that a lot of times that you have to say no to something in order to say yes to something else.
Yeah.
And when you're saying yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else, because life, and it's just a bunch of little choices.
Mm-hmm.
You know, am I going to hit snooze or am I not?
Right.
There's not an in between. You either do or you don't. I actually have that somewhere right in here.
Good old Yoda.
Yoda.
There is no
Do or do
try.
not. There is no try. And, you know, it's one of my favorite things, because they're just really, most of the time, it's on or off, black or white, yes or no. Are you going to eat the donut or are you not?
Yes.
Are you going to work out? Are you not? And
there's a choice between something else and donuts. It's always the donuts.
I gotta forget. Ashley loves donuts. We have to choose. We have to choose something else.
That is a priority.
Are you going to eat broccoli or not?
Yes.
She's cringing. Yes.
I love broccoli.
What if it's a donut that's shaped like broccoli? No, never mind.
Now you're making.
Now it's getting complicated. But really, you know, people think you have to create this big lifestyle change, and I'm just going to change my whole world. And it's really no. You just have to say no to one thing. So it's no to, we live in Utah, so it doesn't happen here. But I hear tell that in other states, people stop on their way home from work and have a cocktail. And that's why there's such thing as like cocktail hour.
Right.
And so it's a matter of saying no to that, to say yes to going to the gym, or say yes to going and having dinner with your family, or yes to going on a date with your spouse. So really, you're not making this drastic change. You're just choosing, what can I say no to? What am I willing to not do today? Maybe you're saying no to an extra hour of sleep, because you know what I did that this morning. Just this morning, my alarm was going off. I've told everybody I get up an hour before I have to, because it makes my life a happy place.
Yeah.
I drink my coffee in silence. No one bothers me. I have plenty of time to wake up. And by the time everyone else is awake, I am June Cleaver.
Right.
Ready to serve. So this morning my alarm went off, and I was like, oh my God, I don't want to. And I was like, I really don't have to. And I'm like having this argument. I'm not sleeping. And I'm not getting up. I'm having an argument in my head about whether or not I should get up. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't really have to, but I really should. And I'm going to regret it if I don't. And I really had like the angels on your shoulder going. And finally I was like, oh my gosh, this is so stupid. And I just got out of bed because I was mad at myself for laying there and arguing with myself. But there have been days where I cut that time short, and I always regret it. I always regret it. And I'm like, dang it, why did I choose to sleep 10 more minutes? Did it really give me that much more rest than the peace of mind I would have had if I got out of bed and had that 10 minutes to just think clearly? Yeah. So maybe it's saying no to 10 minutes, half an hour of sleep. Maybe it's saying no to watching one more show late at night so you can go to bed so you can get up early.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. It's a little thing. It's a bunch of little choices, a million little choices, a million little no's that get you to where you need to be. But you have to be willing to make that choice. And sometimes it's not easy.
Absolutely. But we have to be clear. So here's our homework for the week. Get yourself really, really, really clear on what your priorities are.
Yes.
List 3 to 5 of your priorities. List the things that you are doing that are meeting those priorities. Okay, what are you doing that is absolutely fulfilling? If you say my priority is my personal meditation, what are you doing every day to make sure that that happens? Keep doing those things. But if you say my kids are my priority, and you get 10 good solid minutes with your kids every day, is that good enough for you? Are you okay with that? If you are, fantastic, stick to it. If you're not, what are you willing to give up in order to gain more time with your children, or to shift what you do with your children so that you can show that they are a priority and not just give them lip service? So what we want you to do, so be absolutely clear on your priorities, and then say no to something this week. Either one thing a day or one thing forever. Get rid of that guitar. Get rid of the Oreos out of the cupboard. Get rid of something that is stopping you from acting on your priorities.
And it doesn't mean that you might never pick that guitar up again.
Right.
You're not saying no forever.
Right.
You're saying no for right now.
For right now.
The same way that when your kids say, hey, Mom, can we go play with our friends? And you say, not right now.
Yep.
Just not right now. You're not telling them they can't go ever, right? You're not telling yourself no forever. You're just saying, not right now. This time in my life, this season in my life, this is what I need to focus on. This is what I want to focus on. And so I need to make space for it.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
all.
My dad always said, you don't go on vacation to save money. So save money before the vacation so that you can spend it on the vacation.
I love that.
If you want to go on a cruise and eat all the junk food on the cruise, then you don't eat the junk food before the cruise so that you can enjoy yourself when you're on it. Say no right now so that you can work towards your priorities, and you're going to be happier, you're going to be healthier, and isn't that what we're all about? Making our home, head, and our health happy. All right, good luck with your homework. Comment here what you're going to be doing this week. Follow us on Facebook at HomeBod Podcast.
Like, share, subscribe.
Like, share, make sure that your bestie is following this podcast here. And give us a good rating. If we're good, let us know how we can improve so that we are serving you, there's your word, serve, the best of our abilities.
And let us know what you want to know.
Yeah.
If you have ideas and suggestions for topics, we want to hear them.
Absolutely. All right. In the meantime, we'll see you next week.